Hello. Well, today I'm going to talk about the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, which I saw when it was re released April 25th last month. And here is my shirt that I have for the anniversary, as well as the ticket. Yeah. Okay. So, I've talked about this film before, so I'm not necessarily going to really speak about the overall contents of it, of the film. So this is a really cool image of the Blu-ray set. Um, but the seeing it in the theater again 20 years later was really amazing. I remember at 11 years old watching it and just being blown away. Like, this is the end of Star Wars. And I'm able to see it on the big screen. I saw all the prequel films in the theater. And a couple years ago, I saw Return of the Jedi for its 40th anniversary. And next week, I plan to see Empire Strikes Back for its 45th anniversary. And hopefully, in 2 years, for the 50th anniversary, the original will be re released, but we shall see what happens with that. But anyway, seeing this film again, knowing obviously I had seen it before, I saw it a few times in the theater in 2005. And it was very, very, for me, it was a fairly emotional experience in the sense that, it's part of my favorite film franchise and its ending. So, in that sense, there was a sadness of it because, there won't be more. And, obviously, the whole Disney thing happened, but we're gonna not really acknowledge that as much as possible. But yeah, it was the end of Star Wars. You know, um, so in that sense, it was sad. However, I was also fairly happy in that it was ending and watching, of course, later when the DVDs came out, Blu-ray and so on. But you know, the DVDs and everything, you could watch them all in order. There is a complete story. Um, Now, of course, there are people who like to watch the original trilogy first and then the prequel trilogy, which is how I saw them because I saw the originals on VHS and then the prequels in the theater, and then subsequently uh, got them when they came out on home video. I actually still have the VHS tapes and of course DVDs of episodes 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, and 6. Though episode 3 never came out on VHS here in America or really anywhere else except Australia, I believe. That's quite interesting. And because of that, no doubt that is a very, no doubt, obviously it's a rare item, but also probably quite expensive on eBay if you ever wanted to be a completist and have all 6 on VHS. Um, but yeah, watching this film again on the big screen 20 years later, it really did took me back a bit 20 years ago where just experiencing this on the big screen, it was amazing. Great experience, really good. And people there were, there's a decent amount of people, I tried to go to we went, I went to an earlier showing, so there weren't as many people there, which was probably a good thing in a sense, because um, I don't know, some people can be quite annoying, but it was a good experience overall, and everyone there enjoyed it. And Hayden Christensen had a, a little introduction before the film began, and yeah, 20th Century Fox is still there, which on one hand it shouldn't be as surprising, but for a while, like if you got them digitally, the only way you like, with the exception of the original film, the 20th Century Fox music was removed because Disney didn't own Fox, and therefore, and the licensing they had, they owned, obviously, went through 3 and 4 and or in 5 and 6, and then where all they're gonna be making. But Episode 4, the original Star Wars, uh, remained with 20th Century Fox, forever, because that was theirs, and that George Lucas was able to make the film the way he wanted with what he had. Because some of the technology for the effects and everything had to be made for that movie in particular. And of course, when you watch these films with 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, if you do watch it in that order, you get to see the technology evolve and become better. Of course, now with the DVDs and Blu-rays, you pretty much just get to have for the original trilogy with the new editions, because George Lucas always wanted to have the films be made in a particular way, and with technology, with the original trilogy, with being not as advanced as he would have obviously liked for the movies. He's able to make them the way he wanted them and how he envisioned them. And I watched a video from David Stewart, who talked about this film, seeing it with his son, because his son had never actually seen Revenge of the Sith before, so his first time was seeing it in the theater. And he's like, I've talked about these movies before, and for Revenge of the Sith, he thinks it's one of the best produced films ever. The way everything is just, the way everything looks, the way everything comes together with the story and all. It's just amazing on a visual level. There's a lot of excitement, good action scenes, and it's very good at drawing you in. And I have to agree. And this may actually be the best produced Star Wars film, honestly. And I remember years ago when he did a breakdown of the reviews of all the Star Wars films, though he hasn't done a proper review of Return of the Jedi, though that's not because he dislikes that film, but it just happened at a point where he didn't get to that film yet, and he kind of made a conscious effort for a full year not, really talking about Star Wars. Even if that means Star Wars that he likes. Like even with the Disney ones, those films, even with all the money that they now have at their disposal, it's not like George Lucas, who really had paid for these films himself, from Empire to Revenge of the Sith. Those were all independently funded by George Lucas. A New Hope, the original Star Wars, got the backing by Fox, and that's how they owned that film. Because yes, George Lucas got the creative control and everything, and the film turned out the way he wanted it for the time with what was available. But then when he was able to make the 2 sequels and the prequels, it was all independently financed and everything. But even with Disney owning owning Lucasfilm and the Star Wars brand and everything, Even the newer films don't look as great. And part of that, as he said, it was because, George Lucas isn't really involved. George Lucas was crucial in all of these Star Wars films. And so all of these films have a unique style. And in many ways, they're very similar because it has a singular vision, but also the style, of the look. There's a similarity to them, but there's also distinct differences depending on the film. Especially with the tone of Revenge of the Sith is, like very dark because this is when the Empire, of course, forms. The Galactic Republic, by the end of this film, ceases to be. And so what happens? The Jedi are primarily wiped out, with very few scattered, and of course Yoda and Obi-Wan have to go into hiding by the end of the film. Anakin and Obi-Wan, of course, fight. That it was the big thing. They fight. We know they had to fight. And we see Anakin becoming Darth Vader, and the birth of Luke and Leia, and them separating to keep them protected until the time is right where, they will be very important to the galaxy, as we see in the original trilogy. And yeah, everything is. It's just amazing, and watching this again on the big screen was great. It's kind of sad how, in some ways, I get more excited for re-releases of older films than brand new films. I mean, there are some films that I do look forward to. Usually, though, that comes down to particular directors, and even if actors or actresses I really like are involved. Like The Odyssey coming out next year. That's from Christopher Nolan, so I'll be looking forward to that. But yeah, and there's other films that do come out later on in the year. Some of these new films that are coming out for this summer do look interesting and good. Haven't seen the last few Mission Impossible, so I probably won't watch that in the theater. I've seen like the first, 6 on television. I actually don't even own any of them on Blu-ray or DVD or anything. And I guess it's just because I wanted to get all of them. And I think for this next film, it's supposed to be the last movie ever, at least with Tom Cruise, though they did at one point say there'll be a 9th and perhaps 10th film in Mission Impossible, though. I don't know. But then again, when you want to get a box set like that, you gotta try to see, the price not being, hopefully won't be super ridiculous, but then again, if it's 8 films, they're just going to be quite pricey, but still, I really, for some stuff like that, it's like you kind of want to, but if it's part of a franchise and you haven't seen like the last one or two, because it was actually the last one. I haven't seen that one, but I saw this first. I think I saw the last couple, but yeah, I saw the first 6. I enjoy those. But yeah, there's new stuff that I probably won't see in the theater, even though part of me wants to. But again, if it's part of a franchise, if I haven't seen the last one, which is probably crucial for Mission Impossible to see the last one, since this is a direct lead-in, because it was supposed to be part 1 and 2. Before they kind of changed the title a bit. So that's kind of important. But still, when they re-release old films like these, I'm all for it, Also, in 2 years, Attack of the Clones will be 25 years old. I'm curious if they'll re-release that at all. And also, another thing that's interesting is at the end of its week-long run, because Revenge of the Sith was in theaters for a week, throughout, America and some other countries, not everywhere around the world, but the various places, it came back to theaters. And Revenge of the Sith, in only 1 week, and not being in every single theater in the world that would play it, because there are some niche theaters that wouldn't play such films like this, but it made like $902 million just in a week. It's like that kind of tells Disney something, and particularly with Star Wars. People like good Star Wars, and people look at their trilogy now, which will be 10 years this December when it began, and it's not as looked upon very fondly. I remember enjoying, the experience of watching those films in the theater with family and friends because the theatrical experience is a very good experience, and it's even better when you're watching a very good film. I didn't particularly enjoy the overall contents of those 3 films, but I enjoyed the experience with friends and all the talking before and even after seeing the movie. All that was fun, and that was all great, and I enjoyed that. So that's something. I got to hang out with family and friends more. It's always a positive in my book. But yeah, people like Star Wars, and they like good Star Wars, and to fans, Revenge of the Sith is great. Like in many cases, like this is the end of Star Wars. Like after this, that's the end of the film franchise. And I can't totally blame them because, after Empire, like after Return of the Jedi, yeah, these films, after in chronological order, the story really does end with Return of the Jedi. It just has a great finality to it. It's like this is the end, and that makes sense. We don't need to have more. I mean, sure, it'd be fun, but at the end of the day, we're all happy with what we got, and yeah. And all I can say is that Revenge of the Sith was great seeing on the big screen 20 years ago, and it's great 20 years later. That's me, of course. Not everybody will share the same opinion, which is fine, but yeah. So that's really all I have to say. Great films, great film, great franchise. Yeah. Always good to see Star Wars on the big screen. And next week I'll no doubt give you my thoughts on Empire Strikes Back. So, and I guess look forward to that. If you're interested, at least, perhaps you're not, but hey, whatever. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much, but yeah, it's just really great to see again on the big screen, and hope all of you are having a great day. Obviously, it's my birthday today, as stated earlier in a video posted today. But yeah, in 3 days proper, May 19th, that's when this will officially be turned 20, though on my birthday, There was the New York premiere. There was the Cannes Film Festival premiere, and it premiered in other countries. I think I saw in like Argentina, it premiered there. May 15th was the day that had the Los Angeles premiere. But yeah, like May 16th was when they had multiple premieres on the same day. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about Revenge of the Sith. I still love it. Great conclusion to the prequels, as well as a good closing in on the complete saga of Star Wars. So, yeah. I hope all of you are doing well. Please have a great day. If it's your birthday again, happy birthday. If your birthday was not too long ago or is coming up soon, I guess happy birthday to you. George Lucas's birthday is actually 2 days before mine, so he's already turned 81. So hope he had a great birthday. Yeah. Please have a great day. Have a great weekend, and I hope all of you will have a great week next week. Blech. Now that I'm pretty much done, I guess I've decided, my mouth has decided it's just gonna stop functioning. So just another reason for me to just shut up now. So take care, and yeah, see you all next time. Bye.